Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Aldo Pellegrini, and today we're going to do the first video of a mini-series, let's call it that, which I might title, I don't know, Quad Cortex How to Survive, or something like that. Why do I say this? Because I frequently receive various detailed requests for specific information or questions from a wide range of different contacts on social media. Like, how can I do this? How can I do that? Thanks. So since I always try to reply with messages or sometimes with a photo or a short video shot on my phone, I thought maybe I could make a few episodes, some videos on specific topics so that they're videos a bit shorter so people can just watch them as they need, you know? Today for the first episode, we're going to talk about scenes. So creating a preset and then using scenes. The most important thing is to understand what a preset is and what a scene is. A preset is your rig, so your amp, your microphones, your entire pedal board with all the effects, the compressor, the distortion, delays, reverbs, and so on, right? So it's your usual working environment, the one you're used to playing with. Usually, in the analog world, what happens? I have my rig, I'm playing, and as the song goes on, I turn my effects on and off, tapping on the pedal board. So I turn on the distortion, change the reverb, tweak something, and keep going like that. The scene basically saves us from all that. So all of this lets us program everything with a single button, with just one click. Let's put it this way. With a single press, it lets me change a lot of parameters, or actually a lot of effects. So I can turn effects on and off at the same time. But beyond that, it also lets me change the parameters of the effects. So it's like I could just go right there and do it. And I can change the gain settings on my distortion pedal or adjust the specific time or subdivision on my delay pedal instantly and all at once. So yeah, that's a big advantage of using scenes. When you're working with a preset and you have 8 scenes, it means you potentially have 8 completely different sounds, each one unique, because I can change the amps, I can change the cabinets, I can do whatever I want just by pressing a button. It's really important to understand how the scene feature works. This applies to all modelers. Fractal, Helix, Headrush, any modeler really, at least the major ones, has the ability to use scenes. Let's say that in some systems it's a bit more complicated. Headrush is a bit trickier when it comes to managing scenes, but with the others it's very straightforward. So let's jump right into Cortex Control and see how to work with scenes, how you can create a preset with scenes that's easy to use and program. All right, here we are, right here. We have a preset that I'm working on, which, as you can see, I'm not changing anything inside it. The amplifier. But I switched directly from one scene to another, and you can hear that it goes from super distorted to clean using the same amplifier. This is thanks to the scenes, because I've enabled and assigned specific parameters to each scene, okay? So scene A is clean, scene B, without having to turn on any other effects, becomes distorted. Because, like we said before, in each scene I can enable new effects, so I can turn blocks on and off. But I can also change individual parameters of each block. Let's take a look, starting from scratch. So up here, how do you quickly create a preset? Directory, I have different folders here where I do what? Experiments, stuff, I save presets. I go here, as you can see in the main area, right-click, create new preset. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect. Let's do an experiment so I can show you how it works and what I can do. The very first thing we are going to add right away is an amplifier. Let's go ahead and drop in the very first one that pops up in the list, which is this one right here. There we go. Now we have it successfully loaded into our session. Then a cabinet, let's just pick one at random. Not this one, this one, this one. Okay, and now we have the amplifier and the cabinet. Right away, a reverb that I usually always put this one behind the kick drum to recreate a bit of that room ambience. Then we add, I don't know, a more important reverb. let's put a Hall to give ambience, okay? And then a distortion pedal at the beginning. So we already create a microchain and a noise suppressor after that, because maybe we make some noise and we want to activate a noise suppressor. All right, here's a quick tip for those specific blocks that don't necessarily need to be always active throughout your whole entire preset setup process. Usually, like the distortion pedal, because I turn it on or off depending on if it's a clean sound, I leave it off. Okay, the delay, the exact same principle applies to longer or shorter reverbs. Maybe I decide to deactivate those as well. So a helpful tip I always give is to completely disable them immediately before doing anything else. And you'll definitely see the reason why in just a little bit. So now I'm turning off the long reverb. I had already turned off the distortion pedals, so it's off like this, and that's good. Why is that? Because as I mentioned a bit earlier, I have the ability to assign any specific parameter I want to the scene, and right now I am going to explain exactly what I mean by that. Let's take the amplifier, let's listen. Okay, without doing anything to it, what's this amp like? Let's turn up the reverb mix a bit. If I now switch to scene B, I'll find all these parameters exactly the same. So with the gain at 2, the bass at 5, the mids at 8.5, let's go to B. See? Here it is, exactly the same. And as you can see, the reverb I mentioned earlier is off, and the distortion pedal is off, because I turned them off at the start. So whatever you do on the first scene, unless you assign a specific parameter to that scene, it applies to the whole preset. So by doing this, now on all the scenes, you see, I have everything the same setup. This means that if I now change the gain on scene A, for all the other scenes, you see, the gain is set to 4. So if you're in this situation, you can't change a parameter directly on a scene without it affecting the entire preset. To have different parameters for each scene, we need to specify which parameters I want to change, or in any case, which ones I want to personalize or customize. To do this, we go to the parameter. So to manage this specific gain level, I am going to go ahead and select the option to assign to scene. Does that make sense to you? And I set it to 2.2. Now I'm going over to scene B. Do you see this little A, B, C, D box right here? This means it has already been set to be assigned to a specific scene. And now I'll move it up to A8 and head over to the output. I assign it to the scene, and by doing this, I'm lowering it here, while the previous scene, where I left it higher, it'll stay high. So basically what happens is when I need to change a parameter that I've already used, the moment I go to change it, I really need to make sure that I remember to enable assignment to the scene so that I don't accidentally change parameters in my project I've already saved before. This is to avoid possibly losing hours of work by accidentally changing something. My advice is to assign every parameter to the scene right away. That way, every scene you work on will be independent and you won't risk messing something up. What we're doing right now allows us to have a distorted sound with the same amp in scene A, and to have a semi-clean crunch sound. So here it is right now. One more specific thing you can assign to a scene, as we mentioned earlier, is the toggle for the on and off button. So turning the pedal or effect bar on or off. So let's say that now on the clean scene, I also want the ambient reverb. Earlier I had you turn it off. Why? Because if I turn it on now, I'll see it active on all the scenes, you see? All right, here is the setting we need. First, I'll go ahead and turn it off. Then I'm going to right click on it to assign it directly to the current scene, and now I can tell the system to turn it back on. This way, I told it, you need to be on in scene A, not in scene B. Exactly. Scene A, scene B, it's off. Perfect. Great, so now we understand that I can assign any quad cortex parameter to a scene, any parameter of the preset and the blocks within the preset to a scene, so I can then modify and completely change A, B, C, and D at the same time. And at the same time, I said, change the gain, change the mids, change the output, add reverb, give me a delay, change the delay subdivision. I can do whatever I want. Another thing, just to say, and this is also something I get asked a lot, how can I copy or move something, scenes, easily, without having to manually go every time, like, now in scene D, change this parameter, copy from before, without making a mess of it. So how do you do it? Down here, you see Geek View. This panel opens where you see default, scenes, because we started from scratch. This was our clean sound. Let's give it a name. Hit enter. This was our crunch, and this is still nothing. On scene C, I want to make a distorted sound. What is the best way for me to copy the crunch scene and then paste it onto scene C? So keep the crunch here, but create another one just like it. So on a Mac, I simply hold down the Option key and drag it over, and as you can see, now I have two separate crunch scenes. Then I modify this second one, set the color to red, rename it to Crunch 1, and go right over here. Finally, I assign my distortion button to this specific scene and turn it on. Now here I'll have a nice I've added a good amount of punch. In this particular case, let's say I also want a noticeably longer reverb, and maybe I want this reverb with a slightly more subtle presence overall. Mix, so I assign the scene, the parameters, less mix, but longer. And there we have it, right there. So this way we've successfully copied the crunch we had before over to the other side, and then we added a little bit of something extra to the mix. You can also reposition and move these elements around however you like. Simply click and then drag them with the mouse to move them over to the right. See? Right now, the clean setting is currently at number 3, and it has just swapped places with the one that has distortion. So depending on exactly where you move it, the preset will automatically swap and replace the specific one you dragged it onto. Now I'm going to put it back here. You can do it here too. There's a menu where you can choose swap, so it moves it. Move this one where? Onto the E, click, and now it's moved onto the E. Move this one onto the E, it puts it back. Or you can choose replace, which is basically copy. It copies onto the E, and now I have 2 of the same on E. So now we've successfully explored and gained a clear understanding of exactly how I can copy a scene from one specific location to another, how I can efficiently move these scenes around, how I can create multiple new scenes, and how I can carefully assign various specific parameters to a specific scene. The only thing you can't change is the signal routing. That is, if I go to row 1 to output, then here, or let's do an example. What I'm looking to do is send my signal to both rows 3 and 4, and then output it from the multi-output located right down here. And you can't change this through the scene. While that specific action isn't currently possible, you do have the option to adjust a wide variety of different volume levels. I have the pump path for these, even for the output blocks. You see here I have the multi-output, and here too I can set the volume, assign the volume to the scene, and also assign the pump to the scene. We can also assign the pump pot. So now I can tell it, hey, on scene F, play for me, or on this scene here, give me 4 dB more. here too for DD. Because in this case, I could use the scene, and this parameter can be changed to increase the volume, to have a kind of booster for solos, without having to add a dedicated effects block for this. So these parameters can also be changed. Same goes for input. This input gain can be assigned to the scene and increased. Let's configure the master to utilize it like a booster. So as you can see, you can do a lot of things with scenes. You can have a ton of different sounds. The important thing is to understand how to match these parameters to each individual block. Okay? I hope I was helpful and gave you some information you can easily use. Feel free to ask me questions, leave your comments, and subscribe to the channel so you'll always be updated when new videos come out. And I'll always try to reply and keep making these short videos to give you all the information you need in a slightly shorter format. Thanks, and see you next time.